Why doesn't anybody ever want to meet Ringo?
Do you ever have one of those things where you're finding it hard to decide which film to watch? Well, I'm having that kind of problem today with Wallace and Gromit, see? As I'm sure you're all aware, Peter Sallis, the voice of Wallace, passed away not too long ago at the age of 96. And I'm trying to decide which Wallace and Gromit film I should watch in his memory. But they're all just so damn memorable that it's hard to pick which one to watch. I mean, there's A Grand Day Out, there's The Von Trousers, there's A Close Shave, there's Curse of the Were-Rabbit, there's A Matter of Life and Death, there's The Cracking Contraptions. There's just so many damn things to pick from, it's so hard to just choose. I could actually watch all these and probably review all of them. Well, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I should watch all of them and review them. However, I'm going to dedicate this whole video to Peter Sallis' memory by reviewing all of Wallace and Gromit's cracking adventures. For those of you who don't know already, Wallace and Gromit is a British clay animation comedy series created by Nick Park of Aardman Animations. The series consists of 4 short films and a feature-length film. The series centres around Wallace, a good-natured, eccentric, cheese-loving inventor, along with his companion Gromit, a silent yet loyal and intelligent dog. Wallace was originally voiced by the late Peter Sallis, but as of 2011, his role was passed on to Ben Whitehead. Gromit remains silent, communicating only through means of facial expressions and body language. So let's all sit back, relax, enjoy Bag of Haribo, and dive into the short film that started it all, A Grand Day Out. A Grand Day Out, originally known as A Grand Day Out with Wallace and Gromit, is a 1989 British stop-motion animated short film directed and animated by Nick Park at Aardman Studios in Bristol. In the film, Wallace and Gromit relax at home trying to decide where to go for their upcoming bank holiday. And as Wallace goes to fix up a cup of tea and some cheese and crackers, he finds out that there's no cheese in the kitchen. He then decides that the pair should go to a place where there's cheese.
Well, obviously.
After browsing several possible locations, including Lancashire, Wensleydale, Philadelphia, and even Tesco's, they glance out the window at the night skies and gives the idea to travel to the moon. Because, as Wallace said, everyone knows the moon's made of cheese. They build a rocket in the basement and pack up for the trip. Then the rest of the film is basically Wallace and Gromit exploring the moon, having a picnic, sampling every piece of cheese they can find from the stalagmites, while avoiding the cooker. So how does A Grand Day Out hold up today? Well, for the start of Wallace and Gromit's cracking adventures, it's a really fun adventure. This film sets up the characters that we all know today for the rest of the films that they were going to appear in. As I said before, Wallace is an eccentric inventor who loves cheese. And it really shows whenever he tries a piece of cheese from every stalagmite he could find on the moon, just trying to figure out what type of cheese each piece of the moon is. And after watching Wallace and Gromit for the first time, it's really hard to imagine anybody else in the role of Wallace. Peter Sallis just nailed the part. Even though you couldn't see his face, he really did sound the part. So Nick Park made the right choice picking him to be the character. And Gromit is Wallace's faithful companion who doesn't speak at all but only communicates through facial expressions and body language. And every time you see some of his facial expressions, you can instantly tell what he's thinking. And the majority of this short is thinking like, should I actually be going through with this, or Is this really worth it? That sort of thing. His actions and facial expressions speak louder than words itself. Even though Gromit doesn't actually say anything in any of these films, he has the best lines of all, just by his expressions. And then there's the Cooker. This is the first kind of villain in the Wallace and Gromit series. And I say kind of villain because it wasn't actually a villain. It was just a robot that was put up on the moon to guard it. And yet it can only work if someone puts money in it. It must have been a design flaw for whoever sent it up to the moon.
Oh, I take stupid pills this morning.
Anyway, the Cuckoo is another funny, silent character, because it goes around making sure things are A-OK on the moon. One of the funniest moments being when it glues the stalagmite back onto the moon. Another hilarious moment for the Cuckoo is the fact that it holds a bat in its drawer. Yeah, a highly sophisticated robot has a bat which he uses to bonk Wallace on the head after seeing him eat some cheese. That's hilarious. And that's still bloody hilarious how that highly sophisticated robot had a bat. And these days, even though the fact that it is a film school graduation project does really show, this film still has a lot of hilarious moments in it. Like pretty much every moment the Cuckoo is on screen. And one moment I really love with the Cuckoo is how Wallace puts the money in it the first time and nothing happens. He calls it daylight robbery. But then when he sees it with the bat the second time, he puts more money in it. When I was a kid, I always thought that Wallace thought he won that bat or something. There's also a scene that had me chuckling every time I watched it as a kid, where a bunch of mice watch the rocket lifting off, and as it's about to take off, they put on some sunglasses. I mean, how often do you get to see mice wearing sunglasses? The music in this film was composed by Julian Knott, the man who would compose the music for the Wallace and Gromit films later on. And this music is really impressive for a short film. I mean, every music that he does fits the scenes really well. I especially love how he composes a life-threatening type of music for when Wallace finds out that he forgot to pack some crackers.
No crackers, Gromit. We forgotten the crackers.
Thanks to Julian Knott's music, this scene is hilarious and suspenseful at the same time. And there's quite an interesting tale about this film too when you know your Wallace and Gromit history. Nick Park started creating the film in 1982 as a graduation project for the National Film and Television School. But the film has taken a long time to make due to the time-consuming techniques of stop-motion animation. It was said that after 2 years, Nick Park had only finished 10 minutes of the film doing every frame himself, which meant that he was going over the deadline for his graduation project. In 1985, Aardman Animations took him on before he finished the film, allowing him to work on it part-time while still being funded by the school. Aardman then went on to offer Nick Park a job, and they had a pretty good deal as well. Nick Park helps them finish some projects that they have in mind, including Creature Comforts, and in return they help him finish his project. After a few good years of filming, A Grand Day Out was broadcast on the 24th of December 1990 on Christmas Eve on Channel 4. And the film alongside Creature Comforts was nominated for the Academy Award for Short Animated Film. But Creature Comforts won, which was also another creation of Nick Park. So these days it does kind of show that A Grand Day Out was just a film school graduation project, but it's just so charming and likeable that you've got to admire it. So while it's not really a huge story, it is very entertaining. I still get a lot of laughs out of it, and I'm sure you'll get some laughs out of it too. But whichever Wallace and Gromit film you like the most, A Grand Day Out is the one that started it all. But it wouldn't take Wallace and Gromit too long to win an award of their own, with their next film, The Von Trappers. The One Trousers premiered in the 26th of December 1993 and was the second adventure of Wallace and Gromit, and it had higher stakes, a bigger adventure and a few more characters. The film begins at 62 West Wallaby Street on Gromit's birthday at breakfast. After being tipped out of bed and dressed using several mechanical contraptions, which is a very clever and hilarious way to get out of bed, Wallace is greeted with a pile of overdue bills. Wallace remembers Gromit's birthday and presents him with a pair of ex-NASA robotic techno trousers, acquired by Wallace to eliminate the burden of taking Gromit for walks. Yeah, that's kind of a selfish present to give someone on their birthday, isn't it? Anyway, while the trousers are taking Gromit for a walk, Wallace decides that the only way to pay their bills is to let the spare bedroom out. He is answered by a suspicious-looking penguin named Feathers McGraw. The Penguin comes to stay at the house, pushing Gromit out of his comfortable bed into the spare room and keeping him awake at night with loud organ music. Feathers also takes an interest in the techno-trousers after seeing Gromit use their suction feet to walk on the ceiling to decorate the spare bedroom. Distressed that Feathers has barged in on his relationship with his master, Gromit packs up his belongings and leaves home. After watching Gromit leave, Feathers secretly modifies the techno-trousers for his own use. He removes the controls on the trousers and adapts them into a remote control. The next morning, Wallace's normal morning routine is interrupted when his expected trousers are replaced with the modified techno-trousers.
It's the wrong trousers, Gromit. He said it!
Which Feathers uses to make him run around the streets uncontrollably. And when Gromit sees all the commotion, as well as Feathers controlling the trousers from the remote control, he gets very suspicious and starts to follow Feathers around, only to discover that he is a diamond thief that plans to steal a large diamond from the museum. And then the rest of the short is Gromit trying to solve this mystery and Feathers trying to steal the diamond from the museum, which leads up to one hell of a great train chase scene. And what's the wrong trousers like compared to a Grand Day Out? To me, it's the best Wallace and Gromit adventure of all. The characters in this short are still the characters that we know. Like, Wallace is still the eccentric inventor, and like I said, it is kind of selfish that he would give Gromit a pair of trousers that would take him walkies on his own birthday, since it kind of benefits Wallace more than Gromit. But he's still a good-hearted man and does care about Gromit a lot. Peter Sallis returned to voice Wallace, and as always he does a great job as the character, bringing out the inventive side and also the dumbness of the character. And Gromit gets the biggest character development in my opinion for this short, because this short mostly focuses on him rather than Wallace, since Wallace is either in the trousers or asleep most of the time in this film. And the one scene that pulled at my heartstrings as a kid, and still does to this day, is when Gromit is packing up to leave home in his dog hut, as he packs up his fins angrily, and then looks at a picture of him with his best friend and then cries for a few seconds. This few seconds of emotions is done really well, considering that Gromit doesn't speak. And like I said, his facial expressions and body language speak louder than words. And thanks to Junior Nott's brilliant music, the emotions gets in really well in this scene. I especially love the music he composes for whenever Feathers McGraw is on scene. How threatening it can sound for an innocent looking little penguin. Now let's talk about my favourite character in this movie, as well as my favourite villain in the Wallace and Gromit franchise, Feathers McGraw. When you first look at Feathers McGraw in his opening scene, you would have thought that a penguin like him would be the villain, because most people would associate penguins as being cute. Especially me and my older brother, since we used to watch Pingu in our childhood. But something about this penguin just seemed very suspicious the minute he walks in the house. I mean, the way he walks about and waddles like a duck, that music composed by Junior Nott that really shows that there's something bad going on in his eyes. The fact that he has no facial expressions at all apart from that blank stare. And it's not very easy to make someone suspicious with just a blank stare. And all that's done really well thanks to Nick Park's partner Steve Botts. And every time Feathers shows up in the room somewhere, the music by Junior Nott just makes it feel very unnerving when he's around. Feathers McGraw is one of my all-time favourite villains in movie history, as well as being my favourite Wallace and Gromit film. And I'm seriously hoping that Nick Park considers bringing him back for another Wallace and Gromit adventure. There's just no other villain besides Feathers or Preston that I'd rather have the two face off against. Compared to A Grand Day Out, The Bomb Trousers has a bigger story and a lot more plot and threat going on, with Feathers being the main threat, and the big plot being about him being a diamond thief and Gromit trying to stop him. But a good chunk of the film has some Feathers actually using the techno-trousers and Wallace to steal the diamond from the museum. And it has no dialogue at all until Wallace wakes up at the last minute during the theft. And even though I've watched this film many times before and still do to this day, the scene with the diamond heist is still very suspenseful. Because of how nice and friendly Wallace is, you really want to see him get out of this alive. And it's just so unnerving just to see Wallace go through all this shit before he finally wakes up. And you can even see how nervous Feathers is getting too with this whole thing, since he sweats the majority of the time. But for me, the biggest highlight in the film is the chase scene. I mean, that was just the first time I'd ever seen a chase scene where they ride on a train set. And I don't know if it's also because I'm a lover of trains in general due to Thomas the Tank Engine and loads of railway documentaries I used to watch as a kid, But this train chase scene is really amazing to me, even if it is just on a model train. And the music composed by Junior Knott really fits the train chase scene very well. Junior Knott's music in this one was really top notch compared to the music in A Grand Day Out. It had a bigger scale, it had more tenseness, and it was just all around awesome. And I still don't get why this train chase music hasn't been released on a soundtrack CD yet. And by that I mean the full version of it rather than a cut down version that you can download. I mean, it's just an amazing piece of soundtrack that goes with an amazing and really well done scene. After the short was premiered, The Von Trousers was nominated the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. And it won the award. And rightly so. It was a really well written, well animated and well acted film. Even if it is just one voice actor, but you know what I mean. And Feathers was so popular that he appeared briefly in numerous other works by Aardman. He would get some appearances and mentions in future Wallace and Gromit films, as well as being the main villain in the spin-off video game Wallace and Gromit in Project Zoo. Additionally, he appears in some episodes of the Canadian computer-animated television series Reboot. So while I still love A Grand Day Out for what it is, The Von Trousers for me is my all-time favourite Wallace and Gromit film. So in my mind, Wallace and Gromit The Von Trousers is the best Wallace and Gromit film ever. It's got a bigger story, it's got more action, it's got suspense, and it's got a great iconic villain. And if you haven't seen The Von Trousers yet, then I highly recommend checking it out. You'll love every second of it. But there was no time for our duo to sit back and enjoy a nice cup of tea and a slice of Wensleydale cheese, because they had more flock of sheep to worry about and a close shave. Wallace and Gromit's third adventure, A Close Shave, premiered in 24th of December 1995. And it had a much bigger story than A Grand Day Out and The Von Trousers, and it had more characters as well. In the middle of the night, a small sheep escapes from a mysterious lorry and enters the house of Wallace and Gromit, who are currently running a window cleaning business. The next morning, Wallace and Gromit fail to notice the sheep chewing at their food and furniture, as well as a new porridge gun which Wallace invented before they leave for work. While they clean the windows of a wool shop, Wallace meets and falls in love with Wendeline Ramsbottom, the shopkeeper. Wendeline mentions that she inherited the shop from her father, who was also an inventor and owns a sinister dog named Preston, who runs a sheep rustling scheme to supply the shop during a wool shortage. After returning from work, they finally discover the little lost sheep who has wrecked all the furniture and decorations in the house. Wallace puts the sheep into one of his inventions, the Knit-O-Matic, a machine for washing and shearing sheep and knitting wool into jumpers. Gromit programs the machine to just give the sheep a wash, but the fault causes the sheep to be sucked into the rest of the machine and sheared. When the sheep emerges, Wallace names him Sean and dresses him in the jumper it knitted. Preston spies on the scene while hiding in the floor drain, and after they leave, he sneaks in and steals the design blueprints for the Knit-O-Matic. The next day, Wallace pays Wendeline another visit. Gromit attempts to investigate and find out what Preston is doing, but ends up getting captured by Preston and framed for the sheep rustling. Gromit is arrested and sentenced to life in prison, while Wallace finds his house overrun with sheep. Wallace, Sean and the other sheep rescue Gromit from prison and hide out in the fields, where they discover Wendeline and Preston have arrived in their lorry to round up the sheep. Wendeline turns against Preston and demands that they should stop the sheep rustling, revealing that Preston intends to use the sheep to make dog meat. Preston locks Wendeline in the lorry with the captured sheep and drives away. So it's up to our heroic duo to save the day and stop Preston's evil plan. And compared to The Von Trousers, A Close Shave is in its own way bigger and grander than The Von Trousers. Like The Von Trousers, this film had a bigger plot, and it had even more characters in it. Wallace and Gromit are still the same lovable characters that we knew them from the first two films. So let's go to the new characters, starting with Wendeline, voiced by Anne Reid. Now keep in mind, the first two Wallace and Gromit films had only one speaking character in Wallace by Peter Sallis. So this was the first time we had another speaking character in Wendeline, Wallace's first love interest. Wendeline is a nice, friendly woman who runs a wool shop. And she looks almost exactly like Wallace, despite only having 2 front teeth rather than 4 front teeth. And she's the kind of character who goes along with the villain's plans even though she knows that it's bad and wrong. But the only reason she did it was because of the wool shortage. But as soon as she finds out Preston's new sinister plans, she turns on him and demands no more rustling. And that's what a lot of good characters do in some films. And like Wallace, she even falls in love with Wallace and they start a relationship. Until the end of the film when Wallace finds out that she doesn't like cheese since it brings her out in a rash. So even though the romance with Gwendoline didn't quite go according to plan, there was no stopping the love of Wallace and Gromit for everyone else. Now, let's talk about the evil Preston. Preston is the second best villain in the Wallace and Gromit franchise in my opinion. This bad dog has it in for sheep and rustles them just to help out Gwendoline's wool business since they were going through a wool shortage at the time. But as soon as he finds one of Wallace's inventions, he uses it to his advantage to turn the sheep into dog meat, since dog meat will probably make more money.
We've got to have money.
And he uses the opportunity to frame Gromit for the sheep rustling so that no one would stand in his way. Preston is another one of those silent villains that's really menacing. But not as menacing in the same way as Ferris is, because we can actually see what's going on in Preston's face. And I gotta say this right now, when I was a kid, Preston used to scare me a little bit. Especially in the scenes when he was being vicious around Sean. Oh, and by the way, here's a spoiler for like the two of you who haven't seen this film. By the end of the film, we learn that Preston is actually a cybernetic robot dog created by Gwendoline's dad. And the fact that Preston was actually a cybernetic robot dog was just a great reveal for me. It kind of reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit when they revealed Judge Doom to be a toon in disguise. And his true robot form looks friggin' awesome even to this day. And there's another little piece of trivia for you out there. When I was a kid, I used to buy Wallace and Gromit toys and made up my own adventures with them. There were even times when I'd make up an adventure where Feathers McGraw escapes from prison, gets a hold of Preston, and then reprograms him to be evil again. And I think that'd be a pretty nice adventure for Wallace and Gromit in the future. Having Feathers steal Preston from Gwendoline and then reprogram him to be evil again. And of course we get the introduction to Shaun the Sheep, a character so popular that he would eventually get his own spin-off TV series called Shaun the Sheep. And for all the Shaun the Sheep fans out there who may not know this already, Wallace and Gromit was where our favourite sheep first flocked onto the screens. In this film we don't really get much time to develop Shaun's character, as in a close shave he's basically a hungry little sheep that likes to eat stuff, no matter what it is. He'll eat furniture, he'll eat food, he'll even chew bits of wire. Yeah, he is a really cute character, but there's not really much character to him in this film. And that would later be fixed in 2007 when he got his own TV show. The music was once again done by Junior Knott, and like always his music is top notch in the Wallace and Gromit films. Especially in the chase scene between Wallace, Gromit and Preston on the motorbike and the van. The music as well as the action is very big screen movie like. It just seems like it could have been in a big screen movie. A Close Shave was the second Wallace and Gromit film to win an award for Best Animated Short Film.
Brilliant teamwork, lads. Hurry-o.
And every second of this film deserved that award. It had a bigger story than A Grand Day Out in the Von Trousers, more suspense, more characters, and a diabolical villain as well. So while A Close Shave has a bigger dramatic story and more talking characters than the Von Trousers, it's a second favourite of mine, with Wallace and Gromit the Von Trousers being my first favourite. So in my mind, the Von Trousers is the second best Wallace and Gromit film ever made. And if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed with it. So after a nice sit down with a slice of Wensleydale cheese and a cup of tea before going back on the shelf, Wallace and Gromit had a new adventure in 2005 as they tried to solve the curse of the were-rabbit. You may remember I've already done a review of The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, so you could check out the full details of what I think of it there. But the movie is basically Wallace and Gromit has a new anti-pesto humane pest control business that keeps rabbit away from people's vegetables since they're having a giant vegetable competition. But trouble brews when a mysterious creature called the were-rabbit comes in and steals everybody's vegetables and eats them. So our dynamic duo are called upon to solve the curse of the were-rabbit and save the vegetables before the competition. The Curse of the Were-Rabbit is a grander scale than the other films put together because it's an hour-and-a-half movie. And that's something that Wallace and Gromit had never done before until The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This film was on a bigger scale than the previous Wallace and Gromit films because it was over an hour-and-a-half long. And it had more characters in it, and a range of voice actors including Peter Sallis as Wallace, Ray Fiennes as Victor Courtemain, Helena Bonham Carter as Lady Totterton, Peter Kay, Nicholas Smith and Liz Smith to name a few. The music was once again composed by Julia Knott, who still does top-notch music. The film grossed $192.6 million worldwide in the box office, so it was a huge success with the audiences and fans alike. And it even won an award for Best Animated Film of the Year, which marked Wallace and Gromit's third award to be won. And there's a huge debate going on now whether a half-hour short or a big-screen fully animated film is best for Wallace and Gromit. But I think it works okay for this film because it has a bigger story and a bigger scale. And with stories that have a grand scale like this one, you do kinda need it to be over half an hour long. And this movie takes advantage of every second, with its great story, interesting characters, the lovable characters we all know, some new characters to add to our library of nostalgic characters, as well as some great humour. You can see my full opinions of Curse of the Were-Rabbit in the original review. But short, sweet and to the point, it's still one of the best animated films of my time. It stars our favourite characters, it's got a bigger adventure, and it's got lots more from side characters. But like the other Wallace and Gromit films, if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. But if you're going to go see it, then I'd recommend checking out the shorts first before coming to this movie, so you can get a full history of the characters. But whichever you decide to do first, Curse of the Were-Rabbit is definitely worth a watch, especially if you're a Wallace and Gromit, Aardman or animation fan in general. And after a couple of years of a nice sit down with a cup of tea and a slice of Wensleydale or whatever cheese they like, Wallace and Gromit returned to our TV screens again in 2008 in A Matter of Loaf and Death. A Matter of Loaf aired on Christmas Day in 2008 and was the fifth adventure to feature Wallace and Gromit. 12 local bakers have been killed by an unknown assailant. Meanwhile, Wallace and Gromit are running a door-to-door delivery service with their bakery, Top Bun. While out delivering, the duo encounter Pile Bakewell, voiced by Sally Lindsay, a former pin-up girl mascot for the Baker-Light Bread Company, and her poodle Fluffles. The brakes on her bicycle appear to have failed as she careers down a hill into a local zoo. They narrowly save her from crashing into the crocodile enclosure. Gromit becomes suspicious after testing the brakes and noticing that they work perfectly fine, but Wallace is smitten with Paella. A whirlwind of romance ensues, again. But Gromit quickly comes to resent Paella for her demanding and controlling relationship with Wallace and insistence on decorating the house, including Gromit's room. He does, however, befriend Fluffles, realizing that she has been poorly treated by Paella. When Paella leaves her purse in the house, Wallace asks Gromit to return it. Another selfish move from Wallace since the Von Trousers. Upon arriving at Paella's mansion, Gromit discovers photographs of Paella with the 12 murdered bakers. To his horror, Gromit deduces that Paella is the serial killer, as he discovers a picture with Wallace as her apparent intended 13th victim, thus completing a baker's dozen. Gromit escapes the house after narrowly avoiding Paella. As Wallace remains oblivious to the danger he's in, Gromit attempts to thwart Paella by installing an airport-style metal detector in their home, locking all the knives in their garden shed and checking the soup she had bought with her for poison. And the rest of the film is basically Gromit trying to save Wallace from Paella before he becomes her 13th baker. Since Christmas 2008, A Matter of Loaf and Death still holds up really well to this day. A Matter of Loaf and Death took more chances than the previous films, as it focuses on something that Wallace and Gromit films had never done before. A serial killer. Now keep in mind, a lot of TV shows for kids these days don't really have that kind of thing in them. Like, you wouldn't expect to see a serial killer story in a kids film. But this film took that chat, and boy did it pay off. And this film shows that Wallace still has bad luck with love interests. With Wendeline it was a dislike for cheese due to her allergies, the second being Lady Totterton, who I'm assuming they became good friends, but it wouldn't have worked out between them, I'm guessing. and the third one being Paella, who turned out to be a bread-hating, baker-murdering serial killer. Paella was the former pin-up girl for the Baker-like bread company. But after she ate too much, she became too heavy to ride the balloon, so they dropped her. And instead of admitting that she could have just cut down on the confections when she had the chance, she takes it out on bakers, and sets out on a mission to kill 13 to make a baker's dozen.
A curse on bakers and their loathsome confections!
First time I watched this special, I had no idea that Paella was going to be revealed to be the serial killer. I just assumed it was going to be another character that we wouldn't see till later on. But having her be the main character and showing her backstory really does pay off in the end. And by the end of the film we learn just how psychotic Paella really is, with her eyes twitching and her sinister smiles and all that. And my favourite character in this film is Fluffles the poodle. Fluffles is Gromit's first love interest, and I'm hoping that she'll stay on for the rest of the films. Fluffles is a cute, nervous little poodle who's had bad treatment from Paella for years. And even though she's frightened of her owner, she does do what she can to try and prevent her from killing Wallace. And I think it's really sweet that she and Gromit fall in love with each other and get together in the end of the film, as well as work together to save Wallace from Paella. And I think she has great character development as well, being a character who thinks she isn't that much threat to her owner, only to man up to her owner and take action. And I'm not sure if I'm the only person who thinks this, but I honestly think that Fluffles should come back as the main character in future Wallace and Gromit films. She's a really entertaining and cute character, and she deserves another main role. I think that she and Gromit really should stay together. She's just a sweet, adorable character. And do I even need to say who does the music in this film? As always, Julian Knott does a great job at doing the music. And like all the other films, his music really does show the intenseness and the sweetness and the sadness and the happiness of whatever scene it's playing in. And there are so many hilarious moments in A Matter of Life and Death, including Gromit trying to get rid of a bomb, which I swear is a reference to the Adam West Batman movie.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
So after all these years, A Matter of Life and Death still holds up to this day. It took more chances than the previous films, and the chances really did pay off. And on my list of favourite Wallace and Gromit films, I'd have to put this one behind The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Because the story isn't as big as The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, but it is exciting as all the other shorts combined. So if you haven't seen this one yet, then I'd highly recommend checking it out. It takes a lot of chances, it's got a big story, and it's got two love stories for the price of one. What's not to like? But the short films and the big feature film weren't all that Wallace and Gromit have been doing. They've also appeared in adverts, TV shorts, and even a TV show of their own. Outside of their films, Wallace and Gromit have appeared in other films, including the TV series Cracking Contraptions, which had Wallace show 10 different contraptions in 10 episodes. And I think that's really the best TV series of Wallace and Gromit we've ever had, since it's really fun to see all these contraptions that Wallace invented, and it's funny to see how they all go wrong eventually. And if you haven't seen the Cracking Contraptions yet, you can find it on the Wallace and Gromit The Curse of the Were-Rabbit 2-disc Special Edition DVD. Or you can find them online in the official Aardman channel on YouTube. Wallace and Gromit also appeared in World of Invention in 2010. But it wasn't really much about Wallace and Gromit, it was more about them hosting a show with live action people showing them their different inventions they've made. And while it's not bad, I just don't think it's as entertaining as Cracking Contraptions was. The two have even appeared in various adverts, including PG Tips, N-Power, as well as various holiday adverts for the UK. Wallace and Gromit have even become famous for saving their favourite cheese, Wensleydale. Years ago, the Wensleydale Creamery was in deep financial trouble, but after the cheese was mentioned in Wallace and Gromit, sales shot up. So Wallace and Gromit are heroes in more ways than one. They even spearhead the fundraising for two children's charities, Wallace and Gromit's Children's Foundation, which supports children's hospitals and hospitals in the United Kingdom, and Wallace and Gromit's Grand Appeal, the Bristol Children's Hospital charity. So with all these popular films, TV shows and TV adverts that have been on, what's next for the future of Wallace and Gromit? It's kind of hard to say at this point, but I bet you that Nick Park will never let our favourite British duo die. So whether they be in animated films, TV shows, shorts, adverts and charities, there's no denying that Wallace and Gromit are icons of Britain. They have great adventures, great characters, great music, great animation, and they're just all around great. And if there's any of you out there who haven't seen Wallace and Gromit yet, be it the films or the TV shows or the adverts, then I'd highly recommend checking them out. They're films full of fun, adventure, and great British humour that only Aardman and Nick Park know how. And there's no doubt in my mind that whatever comes in the future of Wallace and Gromit, they'll always be two of the most iconic characters in the UK history. And their legacy will live on for generations to come. I'm Dalek44, and if you'll excuse me, there's something I've got to do. See you.
It's the wrong trousers, Gromit.